And let me give both of you this, Caleb Gale, beginning with you. I don't presume to direct you in your response to what you heard the president say today. I just want to give you an open opportunity to react to the president's speech or any other aspect of this 100-year marking of this tragic event.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence, thank you so much. It's hard to underestimate the potency of the president of the United States recounting for Americans and for the world exactly what happened. And doing so oftentimes with graphic detail that I, quite frankly, as a Tulsan or as a native Tulsan, growing up and going to Tulsa High School, never, ever heard. There's something quite potent about that. But it also then kind of illustrates the enormity of not just the damage done, but the lingering effects of that damage, and whether or not the policy solutions that he mentioned or that others mentioned really are enormous enough to then deal with the challenges that are still being faced by so many Black Tulsans. So quite powerful to hear that from a president, to hear the truth, especially after 4 years of a president who obfuscated the truth. But the question still remains, are our solutions as big as the history that we are standing against?
Professor Jelani Cobb, I've been wondering all day what's been going through your mind about this.
Well, I mean, a lot, obviously. And I think Caleb's point is well taken. But I do want to give a little bit of context. You know, when you saw everyone stand up and applaud when he said this was not a riot, it was a massacre, that was important because President Biden was stepping squarely into the middle of a debate that has, among many debates, that has been roiling the commemoration of what happened. And, you know, there has been an attempt to soften the language by referring to this as a riot as opposed to referring to it as a massacre. And you can really kind of dictate where people stand on the issues by the language that they were using to describe what happened 100 years ago today. And so that's part of it. And so he's kind of settled that debate. In a bigger sense, though, one of the things that disturbed me was, you know, conversations I had with people when I went around Tulsa. And, you know, not all these people who said these things to me were white, but people said, well, you know, I'm not quite sure things were as bad as they're saying they were. Or if, you know, they really killed 300 people. And that's a little hard to believe. And it is really not simply about what President Biden said, that we have to look at the ugliness in our past, but we have to actually be willing to believe these things happened. Or else we leave ourselves open to them being recommitted in the present and the future.
That's exactly why I chose that particular piece of the video of the president's speech, that he was going into those real details and not flinching. And I want to take a moment to listen to Viola Fletcher, 107 years old, who is one of the last living victims of this massacre. She testified on May 19th to a House hearing. Let's listen to what she said.
I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see Black men being shot, Black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see Black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot.
Caleb Gale, your extraordinary piece about this 100-year-old event, it's just amazing to consider that there are still some living witnesses to it.
Without a doubt. I mean, not only did Mother Fletcher mention that, you know, America has a tendency of forgetting this sort of event, it's that forgetting was rather intentional. It was the goal of the city of Tulsa to ensure that the stories that Mother Fletcher would then soon tell would never reach outside of the bounds of Tulsa. The goal was to ensure that people still wanted to flood into this booming city. as President Biden mentioned earlier today. The goal was to ensure that they made promises of restitution without actually spelling out what restitution would look like. So the reason that Mother Fletcher and her brother and Mother Randall are advocating in the way that they are is because for so long their stories were silenced on purpose. And their desire is not just for those stories to be told, but then those stories that are told might indicate what we might owe them. And so that's the reason why they're such incredible living testaments to not just the damage done, but the lingering damage. The fact that, quite frankly, Black Tulsans on average live 6 years less than most white Tulsans.